back to the bookish vlogs. 2 weeks without a book video. Oh, it feels like genuinely painful. I fully did not appreciate how much I would miss filming this content, but the last few weeks have been so crazy and I physically couldn't fit it all in, but we're back. We're late, but as you know from the title, this is going to be an August reading wrap up. Because I've gone a couple of weeks without doing bookish videos, I feel like I've got so much bookish content in me that needs to come out. So if you haven't yet subscribed, please do subscribe, and I'd recommend turning on the notification bell so you get notified when I post, because I hope we're going to have some extra videos coming out than normal over the next couple of weeks, because we're going to do my August reading wrap up today. I need to talk you through my September TBR. I want to do a big autumn bookish haul. We need to get some autumn reading vlogs in. I just feel like there's a lot. And I don't want to overpromise or burn myself out, but I do feel like we're getting extra bookish content over the next couple of weeks. I just need it, you know? I'm so excited for the next few months of reading. I just think it's going to be so good. Anyway, for now, let's talk about August. For those of you that saw my July wrap-up video and my August TBR, we had a total of, I think it was like 13 or 14 books that we planned to read in the month of August, and we made it through 9. And I'm really happy with that. 9 is a strong reading month. Of these 9 books, 8 were romances, 1 was literary fiction, and of the 8 romances that I read, 7 were sports romance and 1 was just other contemporary romance. So it was definitely a very rom-com-y month to round out the summer, which was exactly what I wanted for my final summer month of reading, and it's put me in just the best headspace to dive into some of the potentially spookier, darker, more autumnal cozy reads. But we'll talk all about those in my September TBR vlog. For now, let's recap August. So, August was my first ever month entering my sports romance era, and oh, have we had a good time, and it's now an era that I will never exit. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm a full lifer when it comes to sports romance now. And the first book that I read in August that started it all with the sports romances was The Deal. Entering my sports romance era, I just have to give you guys full credit for that. Those of you that said that you thought I would love Elle Kennedy and you thought that I would love this off-campus series, you were 100% correct, because oh my gosh, did I. The first book in the series is called The Deal. It follows the story of Hannah and Garrett. Garrett is a college ice hockey player, and he's like the up and coming, like the ice hockey player. I'm not sure if he's actually team captain. I don't think he is captain, but he's like the best of the best. He's got loads of potential to go pro after college, but his GPA is starting to plummet and he needs a tutor, and Hannah is acing her classes and he asks Hannah to help tutor her. She doesn't really want to. She's also got some of her own trauma that she's trying to work through, and I would definitely read the trigger warnings about this book before you read it, because there are some heavier topics in it. But in general, this really is like a fun rom-com. It's not really heavy. I just check the trigger warnings first before you read it. But the banter is so good. The spice is so good. It was just, to me, the perfect introduction into sports romance, the found family, the group of college friends. I just loved it. This to me was a 4.75 book. Something about it is preventing me from giving it a full 5 stars, but 4.75, like, I just had the best time reading this book, and I flew onto the rest in the series. After The Deal comes The Mistake. The Mistake is a story between Logan and Grace. This one was probably one of my least favorites in the series. Obviously it's called The Mistake, and at the beginning, when the 2 characters first meet, Logan makes a mistake, and the mistake was probably just like a bit too icky. Like, I would never forgive a guy if he did that personally. Or it wasn't even about necessarily forgiving him, but I would never, I don't know, I wouldn't have been able to start dating him and for a romance to develop. Obviously it's a romance book. I wouldn't have been able to do that because it just was like a bit too much for me in the mistakes column. And I felt a little bit with the book that the only reason they really ended up together, and I don't mean to be too cynical, but was because his ego or his pride took such a beating once he realised how guilty he felt about what he did, that he just had to make it up to her so that he didn't feel bad anymore. I don't know if I really got a lot of descriptive evidence of how or why Logan really liked Grace, like what it was about her personality that he fell for, because yeah, in lots of ways I'm just not really sure that he ever really properly fell for her. He just was trying to make up for the mistake he made. But I still just loved being around this group of characters. I did actually really love Logan's character. He had such this like cheeky chappy vibe going on, which I really enjoyed, and I really liked Grace as well. So to be honest, there was I loved so much about this book. It was just their actual romance. I just wish could have maybe had like a little bit more depth to it. Sorry, the lighting in here is crazy today. It's a very windy, very cloudy day, so like the clouds and the sun are just all over the shop. But yeah, so that was a mistake. I'll rattle through these so I don't need to go through all of them in loads of detail because it's kind of like a Chestnut Springs vibe. I honestly think that Elsie Silver to cowboy romances is what Elle Kennedy is to sports romance. They're the same kind of vibe. This off-campus series is an interconnected standalone series, so each of them follows a different character. They're all kind of in the same friendship group. The score is my favorite one, I think. I think the score has to be my favorite. The score follows Dean and Ali. Dean is like, I'd say the ice hockey teams, but more than the ice hockey teams, he just seems to be like the college or like the university campus, like playboy. He really enjoys spending his time with girls, women, but the way he just owns it is so much fun. And I absolutely loved Ali's character as well. And there are so many moments in this that I was just genuinely like howling with laughter. Their dynamic was so funny. She was so funny. Dean he's just a really funny, likable character somehow, even though he's got a bit of that playboy thing going on. But honestly, another total winner in the series for me. And then the final book, book 4, the trope here is accidental pregnancy. I know it's not everybody's favorite trope. I struggled with this one a little bit. This was probably one of my least favorites, only because I hate saying it, because I just want to be a champion of all the female main characters I read in books, to be honest, but I really struggled with the FMC in this book. This story is between Sabrina and Tucker is just such an angel. He's a phenomenal MMC. He just does all the things that just do it for me. You know, he cooks, he cleans, he's so attentive, he's so acts of service, he's so words of affirmation. He's just always there for Sabrina, no matter how much it might inconvenience the rest of his life. And I just feel like her character is quite a cold, slightly kind of like bitchy character, which in so many stories I really don't mind, because always those characters have a reason why they are that way, and you understand the depth and the trauma that have driven them to be more reserved and to not let their barriers down so easily. I just feel like Sabrina never really did, and I just think that in a romance book, it doesn't matter if she stays that kind of reserved, cold, kind of like bitchy vibe to the rest of the world, but with the guy that she's falling for, he should get some of her kindness that we know she has deep down inside. I don't know, I just feel like she stayed quite cold to him, and I was like, Tucker deserves better. I just really felt like he deserved more. But once again, I still got to hang out with all of the characters for an entire book. I love how much the characters from the rest of the interconnected books are all in each of them, and it just feels like you're hanging out with the best friendship group ever. Which brings me on to The Legacy, which is the final book in the series, and this is a collection of small novellas, which is basically just a giant epilogue book wrapping up each of their stories. I think this could have been done better, to be honest. I'm so happy I got it. Like, I love an epilogue. I'm a happy endings kind of gal. I like my stories to be wrapped up neatly in a bow and to know that everything works out and that everyone's happy. It's just who I am. And I felt a little bit like each of these little novellas had too much of a kind of a story arc where each of them goes through like a lot of drama, or there's a significant challenge in each of the relationships. And I just thought that was a shame, because I thought that maybe our couples deserved more of a happy ending wrap up. It's not that they didn't get their happy ending, but I feel like it was trying to add in too much of like a challenge plot line, which if that was going to exist, it should have just existed in the main book, and an epilogue should just really be about wrapping things up. So yeah, I thought some of like the forced trouble in this were a little bit much, especially Sabrina and Tucker's. I thought it was such a shame because they had such a tough time in so many ways in their book, and I just thought that they finally got to have some them time in this novella, and basically just everything went wrong that could have gone wrong. And I just thought, don't do them dirty like that, you know? They just deserved some like peace and love and romance and worry-free spice. And anyway, I still really enjoyed it. And overall, the off-campus series was so fantastic. I'm so pleased I read it. And I fully went into a few days of mourning when they were over. And to be honest, I'm still sad about the fact that they're over. If you want to get into sports romance, if you're like me and you like some light, fluffy rom-coms, these are definitely rom-coms. Like they're genuinely funny. They are quite spicy. If you don't like reading spice, these won't be for you. But yeah, 5-star series for me, one of my favorite series, but not any individual book was actually a 5-star. I don't know how that's possible. That probably means I'm rating the series wrong. But if you're a series girly, you get it. Like, it's the collective that makes it a 5-star. So that is what kicked off the month of August. I'm now definitely going to get these in the wrong order. But I then read Mile High by Liz Tomforde. I did do a reading blog of this one, so if you saw that, you'll have seen my thoughts as they progressed whilst I was reading this. But this book was definitely a bit of a journey. It started off quite slow. It started off by me feeling like I wasn't really going to vibe with it. I wasn't really connecting with the characters. I wasn't really connecting with the writing style. And I think, to be honest, I was just grieving too hard my loss of the boys from the Elle Kennedy series. But I'd say once I was in the second 50% of the book, things really kicked off for me with this. I ended up tearing up. I was laughing out loud. I honestly went on a full 180 journey with this book. This book follows the story of Xanders and Stevie. It's ice hockey again, similar to the Elle Kennedy series, but this time they're in the pros. So Xanders plays for he plays for Chicago. I think they call them the Chicago Raptors, I think they call them. I can't remember what they call them in this. But in actual Chicago ice hockey, they're the Blackhawks. They've got like a slightly different name to the actual teams that exist in real life. But unlike the Elle Kennedy series, these are now in the pros. So these are pro sports romances. Xanders is kind of like the bad boy on the ice hockey team, and Stevie is the flight attendant that is on the private plane that flies the team to each of their games across the country. And I have to be honest, in the end, I loved it. It is too long. Like, look at the size difference between one of the Elle Kennedy books and Mile High. I do think it is a little bit too long. It could have been shortened slightly, but I really enjoyed it in the end, even if it was a slightly slower start for me. So another big tick in the sports romance box. And because we're already in September, I have to admit, I have already read The Right Move as well, which I also loved. Well, I'll have to talk about that in the September reading wrap up, but it's always a good sign that if it sends me on to the next book, I genuinely really enjoyed it. Then I read The Paradise Problem by Christina Lauren. This is my first Christina Lauren book, and I'm gonna say before we've even finished this video that this was my favorite book of the month. I loved this book. Can I give it 5 stars? I still don't really know. It is somewhere definitely between the 4.75 and 5-star range for me. I think Anna, who is the female main character in this book, is the funniest character I've ever read. She was absolutely hilarious. She's an artist, she's slightly eccentric, and the way her brain works is just hilarious. The one-liners that she would come out with, the way she just says whatever she's thinking was executed so well, I thought. So this is a story between Anna, who's the female main character, and West, who is the MMC. They both get married whilst they're at college as a marriage of convenience type situation. I don't know how this works, but it's something like you get a discount on college housing if you're married, or there's some kind of subsidy that they got to benefit from if they got married whilst they were at college. So they didn't really know each other. They were complete strangers. They didn't interact at all. They just got married and existed as strangers throughout their college years. You don't get to see any of that time in their life, but you're now forward in time by 5 years. And it turns out that West is actually the heir to a load of money, and he's only going to get his inheritance if he can prove to his family that he is married and has been married for the last 5 years. So him and Anna go off to a tropical island with his very wealthy family and need to convince them that they have actually been married for 5 years, even though they're basically veritable strangers. And it's so good. I've seen so many negative reviews about how unrealistic this story is and how this romance would just never happen. And I have to say, I just truly don't care. I had so much fun. I don't care how unrealistic it is. It's like an actual rom-com. This book reminds me, the characters are very different, but this book reminds me of like The Proposal. You know, the Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock movie, The Proposal, which I love so much. It's that kind of like quippy, funny story. Same thing, they have to convince that his family, they're engaged. Same kind of vibe. They go off to somewhere where it's like the family's wealthy estate or whatever. Same. If you loved the movie The Proposal with Ryan Reynolds and Sandra Bullock, you will love this book. I had a blast. 4.75 or 5 stars, I don't really know, but that's definitely going up there as my favourite book of the month and one of my favourite books of the year so far, I'd probably say. Next, I finally got around to reading Carrie Soto is Back. Thank you so much to all of your words of encouragement. It was never going to be acceptable for me to soft DNF a Taylor Jenkins Reid book because I just do love her books. So quickly on the plot, Carrie Soto is Back is about the best female tennis player, or in fact she might even be the best tennis player of all time, has retired. She's won the most Grand Slams of any tennis player ever. And when a new tennis player comes along to threaten her title and is on the cards to beat her record of the number of Grand Slams she's won, Carrie decides to come back out of retirement in her late 30s to retain her title. And this book essentially follows her journey, entering tennis again, starting to train again with her dad, who was her coach, how she navigates each of the international competitions, and what that journey back to success looks like for Carrie. I found it extremely difficult to rate this book. There were parts of this that I struggled through. It definitely wasn't a book that I flew through and just like gobbled the whole thing up. It is very tennis. A lot of the book is the tennis games themselves. So you're literally following kind of hit for hit, point for point. You're making your way through, 15, 30, 40 deuce advantage. Like, you're fully playing the game of tennis with Carrie. And part of that I liked, but part of that, like, I'm just not a massive sports person. Like, I like reading about sports romance because it's not really to do with the sport, it's to do with the romance, obviously. If you love your tennis, you will truly love this book. I also couldn't 100% relate to the character because Carrie is an extremely competitive, extremely sporty woman who has such an incredibly high standard of perfection and excellence. Of course, you have to be if you're going to be the very best at the world in something. And I just have never been that sporty, and I've never been that competitive with other people. I don't have that sense of like huge hunger to beat others. So I just couldn't truly relate to her. But having said that, at the end of this book, I did, like, it tugged on my heartstrings, and I felt that close the book feeling where you just feel like you need to sit with it for a bit and you don't know if you're going to burst into tears or if you just need to sit in a quiet room. It gave me all of those really strong feelings at the end. So a real mixed bag. I don't know where that means I place it. It's not a 5-star book. I think it's probably more in the 4 region, maybe 4.25 I'd probably give it. But this is one of those books that I think for some people could truly be a 5-6-star read. I think it has that potential. I just think it didn't fully resonate enough with me to give it more than maybe like a 4.25. But thank you so much to everybody who encouraged me to read it. I'm so glad I did. It's not a book that I'll forget very easily, but it also just was like a lot of tennis. Anyway, I don't know how else to describe this book, but that was Carrie Soto's Back. And then the final book that I read for the month, which is not a very powerful book to wrap up the month with, was The Chase, which is another Elle Kennedy. This is the Briar You series, which is a spin-off series from the original Off-Campus series. And I just needed something really easy that I could read while I was packing, traveling for my first few days in Greece. And it was okay. Honestly, I didn't love this book. This book follows Summer and Fitz. Or maybe it's Fitzy. Fitzy's one of the other hockey players who don't live. All of the boys in this series all live in the same house. Fitzy's one of the other teammates. And I was actually really excited about this book because look, Fitz, he's got the tattoos, he's got this mysterious vibe going on, and I was like, I need to know more about this man. And the female main character of this book is Summer, who is Dean's sister from my favourite book of the Off-Campus series. I love Dean, and everything that I knew about his sister Summer I thought I was going to love as well, and I did. Fitzy was a bit of a letdown to me. Like, okay, he did have this whole shy, broody, mysterious thing going on, which was great to read about, but I just think that being shy doesn't mean that you can get away with not saying how you feel, and some of it made me feel a little bit like Summer was settling for a man that wouldn't fully come through for her. I don't know. There were a few instances where I was like, some of the boys in the other books just do more, like they just come through harder. They overcome their own stuff to like be the true knight in shining armor kind of moment. And Fitzy just felt a little bit more like, I don't know, your average guy. And that's not what I come to my books for, I come to my books for men that raise the bar, that set a high standard that I can swoon over. And I don't know, there was just something slightly missing from this book for me. I think ultimately I don't actually think these two were right for each other. I don't think they actually suited each other in the end, but I still had a good time and I'm glad I read it. It was a really easy read, so I am going to keep reading more of this series. In fact, I have already read the next one in this series. What's it called? Oh yes, and I did actually enjoy the rest of it. Again, that's September's wrap up, but yeah, it was all right. I liked it. Somewhere in the 3-star range, maybe like 3.5, 3.25, something like that. It was good, but not amazing. But that is a wrap on August. It was a good reading month. There were no real like super heavy hitters this month, I have to be honest. And I'd probably categorize this month of reads as a really fantastic identification of palette cleansers. These to me are some of the best palette cleansers that you could have when you're in between some slightly heavier books. I'm definitely going to use the rest of the Bride You series as some palette cleansers for the upcoming season, but I can pretty confidently say that I would recommend every single one of these books from this month, maybe apart from the Bride You book. I didn't love The Chase, but the rest of them were also fun. And I can now say that having read that many light-hearted books, my mental headspace and my brain capacity are now fully ready for autumn reads. To me, autumn equals fantasy, fantasy equals autumn, and I am ready for high fantasy, complex books. I'm ready for thrillers, I'm ready for some horror, maybe. I'm a bit of a scaredy cat, but I'm so excited for the next few months of some harder hitting books. As I said, if you aren't already subscribed, please do, and if you haven't hit the notification bell, do that as well, because I'm hoping to get my next video out on the bookish stuff in the next couple of days. And then for my Sunday videos, again, you're just gonna have to bear with me for a little bit. We've got my 30th birthday vlog coming soon. We've got the Greece vlog coming soon. And then I need to get into all of the cozy autumnal vlogs coming soon. I feel like my brain is just full of all this stuff that I just need to get out there. So it's gonna be a busy few weeks. I am so excited. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you have the very best week, and hopefully I will see you in just a couple of days. Bye guys.